Hi, good morning. My name is Brian Anderson, and today we're going to be covering a code check complete 2, edition 2, and we're going to be going through pages basically 65 through 68. And you're going to have to bear with me. This is probably the very first video that I'm making on this, so we're going to move along here. As you can see, hopefully you've went out and you've bought this book. If you don't have this book, you can buy it from Amazon or wherever you want. And we don't sell them, but maybe in the future. And again, so as we cover this information, you can barely read it on the screen, but I'm doing the best I can. You can follow with me. Now, the ideal situation is that when you get done, after we get done with these pages today, that you go back tonight and reread it, recheck it, highlight it, whatever you need to do. It might not hurt to have a highlighter or a pen with you, because as we go through this book, there's going to be things in there you're going to want to highlight, things you're going to want to see, and things you're going to want to remember. We're hopefully going to cover, over the period of time, we're going to cover a lot of information that's on the exam. I'm going to be adding information from my own life experiences for you, so you can go ahead and see what I'm talking about, maybe hopefully clarify what we're looking at. The ideal situation is we're only going to do 2 or 3 pages a day. It's only going to come up to, maybe, 40 minutes at the most, maybe sometimes only be 5 minutes. I'm also planning on later on in some of the videos that I have out here is that I'm going to do some product reviews and things like that from my own experiences. So the best thing you can do is definitely send me, on Gmail. It's briankcks@gmail.com. Send me your name, send me your cell phone number or how you want me to get a hold of you. Send me your email. And as I make these videos, as time goes on, I will email you and say that there's a new video today. Also, if you're looking at this, you'll probably be looking at this at YouTube. And if you are, go ahead, subscribe to it, and go ahead and put a like on the bottom. I haven't got any funding or anything from them yet, but I'm trying to start. Maybe we get some funding and make things a little easier. So now, that being said, basically we're going to go through there, and on page, we're going to be looking at page 65. And when we look at 65, there's a lot of things I'm going to cover. I'm not going to read it word per word to you. You're just going to have to go through there and see what we're looking at. Now, see, this says the code check for edition. Though, and again, according to the book, it's the second edition of the book. And so I don't know what they're doing here. But again, you follow along with me. Hopefully you've got a book, and it talks about what edition. This is 2009 international. We're going to be using the International Residential Code, which is basically for 1 and 2 family dwellings. Now, in the real world, we're going to be using the International Plumbing Code for about everything. And we also have the UPC, which is Uniform Plumbing Code, which we'll also talk about. So those are some of the things that we want. Then we're also going to be some additional codes as they look down here, as we go down through the columns here. Additional codes, or specified items. There's going to be from the International Fire Code. We're going to be the International Fuel Gas Code. Some of these things that we're going to be looking at are going to come from this book. Now, if you're going to get eventually, if you go for the master's exam, you're going to want to go ahead and buy some of these books. But for right now, let's just get started. This class is going to be based for basically apprentice, journeyman, and even masters are going to get something out of the class by watching it. So each one of these are only going to be a few pages again. So as we look over here and we go to the international, let's look at the table over there, table 1, which we got right here. Table 1, we're going to be looking at a few different things. There's some abbreviations in there. And when they do an abbreviation, sometimes they're just going to say the IRC code, or, the UPC code, or UMC code. You should know what them abbreviations stand for and what code book you're using, especially if you're going to go in and take the test. They also talk about the NFPA 58, liquefied petroleum. We're also going to be looking at gasizing, again, a National Fuel Gas Code. All right. So again, we're going to have, there's acronyms. Sometimes when you go in and take the test, they're going to give you an acronym, and you need to know what that acronym stands for. Again, if they ask you what, UPC stands for, they're going to give you a multiple choice test. They're going to give you 4 answers. They're all going to say UPC in them, but which one's the correct one? So again, as we go through these, you want to learn some of these acronyms. You want to learn abbreviations and so forth at that. So now from there, going to pause. Okay, that took it to that point. Now I paused. Okay. So now I can say doc or whatever, So far, does that sound like what I should be saying? Okay. Now, let's see, then again, when I do this, okay. Yeah, you know, okay, okay. Well, okay. Okay, now we're going to get ready to go again. All right. Okay, I just turned to page 66 in here, and this is going to be talking about key to using the code checkbook. So as we use the code checkbook, we're going to be looking through there and trying to figure out what are they talking about. And again, I'm not going to read everything in here. Hopefully later on today, you're going to go back through this book and you're going to look at it and you're going to acquaint yourself with what's going on. So, and again, they're talking about different things on you keys to using the code checkbook. And again, now they're going to give us the different things and they're going to talk about this example in the very first one here. You know, it says there, it got the little box next to it, all future, you know, yeah, all future. Again, I can't even read it myself here. Required wire venting. Okay. Again, it says the line is stating that the future traps require venting and that the rule is found in section 3101 of the IRC, but it's also found in section 901 of the UPC. So again, they're talking about that as we look over there and we see that two abbreviations that they're talking about right here. 3101 and 901, that you can see what they're talking about. And they're going to give you some references in the book. And again, it says focuses on the figures and tables. Obviously, F is going to be figure and T is going to be table in the following examples on page 74, which we're not going to go to. Okay, changes into directions require appropriate fittings. So we're going to look at fittings as we go along there, and we're going to figure out what fittings we need and what appropriate fittings we can use and what we can't use. All right. Now, every 3 years, the code comes out. And so there's also a change in the previous code edition. Now, again, you don't have to, you can follow the code that you start. When you start a building or a project and the code changes during the project, it doesn't matter. You still stay with the project to which you started with. So when you go in there and you get your permit, you're going to stick with that code until the job is done. Even if it's a 10-year job and the code's 10 years old, you're not going to have to update it because you just start that way. So that's a little piece of information to know. A lot of people don't know that. They think, oh man, they changed the code and now I got to update. No, not really. But then we're going to talk a little bit about backwater valves. You got to be sure that whenever you have a backwater valve, that you got it basically is clear. You want to make sure that if you run a snake through it, that you're going to be able to get the snake back out of it. I've seen that happen where they'll run a snake through, they don't know it, they run the snake through it, and then it comes back and it catches on there and then they have a problem. Okay. So again, so you want to make sure of that. Then there's up there at the beginning of the next page here, or the next column, it talks about a line ending with an exception. Okay. Now there's exceptions to a lot of rules. Sometimes there's exceptions to exceptions. So you got to be careful when you take the exam. Sometimes they're going to give you the exception and they, when you're looking for it, you're going to go there, you're going to read the code, but what they're really looking for is the exception to that particular item. So you got to be careful when you read a multiple choice question that you get exactly what you're supposed to be looking for and the answer they're looking for. Now, what I do, and again, I'll talk more about taking tests at a little later date. So, but make sure that you realize that sometimes there's exceptions to the rule, and then there's exceptions to the exceptions. And one of them, looking here on the top of that, it says ignition source of 18 inches above the floor. A lot of times they make you put, if you got an ignition source on a water heater, it's in a garage, it's got to be 18 inches off the floor. But the exception says that if it's, flammable vapor resistant, then you don't have to put it above the floor. So you got to know what you're looking at. Some inspectors are going to say, I don't care if vapor resistant or not. I want it off the floor by 18 inches. So whenever you deal with the codes in the city, find out what their variances are, what they require, because you can't necessarily follow the code and think that this is the answer. Sometimes cities will change the code to meet their specifications. So again, we'll talk a little bit more as time goes on. All right. Now, again, if a rule does not actually is not covered in the code, you're going to have to get a variance from the inspector or have him clarify it. Make the inspector your best friend. Let me tell you that you're better off doing that. I've had jobs where the inspector comes out and sees me doing the work. He signs off with it without even looking, because he knows everything I do is right. I don't cut any corners. I try to follow the rules. I try to make the job better than what even the code requires. And sometimes I've had it in a situation that I've made it better, but then the inspector comes out and tells me I can't do that. I need to change it. So again, each inspector is different. Some of them understand the code. I can't tell you how many inspectors I've had in the years come by through my class and not know what I'm talking about. And so sometimes they learn that way. So again, sewer depth is going to be variance according to the code. The IRC says, it depends. We want to make sure the depth is deep enough that's not going to freeze like your water lines. That's not going to have any problems with it. So that being said, we're going to be we're going to go ahead and go on here to the next page now. Okay. I'm back on page 67 here, and we got abbreviations that we're going to look at. And one of the things about abbreviations that's on this page, you should look through these and try to figure out what each one of them stands for. Like AAV, air admittance valve. We're not going to go through all of these. You just need to spend your time and know what some of these things are. I would go through all these abbreviations and see if you understand DW is a dishwasher, DWV is drain, waste, and vents. You need to know some of these things. Remember, we talked about that water heater being up off of the floor, and you'll see there I put a mark right there next to the FVIR, which stands for flammable vapor ignition resistant. Okay, again, you're going to see that, you're going to say, what the hell is that? So if you go ahead, and that's one of them things that I actually put a tab on that page, and I did on mine. I've got a tab on it so that, again, if I get in a question, I can get to that pretty quickly. Now, then over there on the other one there, we got L and L, meaning listed and labeled. You're going to see that a lot of times, L and L. Is that product listed and labeled? And if it's listed, you have to follow the listing. If you don't follow the listing, all bets are off. So if you go in there and you put a sink in there or a refrigerator, whatever, if you don't follow the listing on how it's piped, again, there might be no warranty involved. Okay, and it needs to be labeled accordingly. Now, at the top of this page, you see that I put N/A, non-applicable. They don't give you that NA in this definition, but you got to, and again, you're going to see it from time to time in this book. It'll say NA, meaning non-applicable, doesn't actually pertain to this particular thing. And again, when you see LP, it's going to be liquid petroleum gas and laundry tubs and so forth. But going down there, WH, basically, we're going to use that a lot. We're going to say that that's a water heater. So basically what these abbreviations are. I would spend, if you're new to this game and you think I would make sure that you look at all these abbreviations and try to figure out what they are. Now I'm going to step back and I look at CSST up there, corrugated stainless steel, okay? And right in about here, what is that? That's the flexible gas line that they use. And again, you're going to see more of that used whenever we do gas sizing later on when we talk about it. So at that being said, I think we're done with the abbreviations. We're going to go ahead and move on to the next page. Okay, this is going to be the last page today that we're going to work on. This is the table of contents. And again, sometimes when you're looking for things, and you definitely want to have this one marked whenever you're taking an exam, if they allow you to bring this book in there so you can find it pretty quickly. And I just go out and buy cheap tabs and put it on the top up there, and it's there. So that being said, now we're going to look at the different things in the table of contents and where it's found in this particular book. It only pertains to this particular book. So again, we're going to be dealing over the period of time. We're going to be dealing with plumbing. We're going to deal electrical. We're going to be dealing with building. We're going to be dealing with mechanical. So again, you need to know where these things are. So if you buy this book, I would tab each one of these separately. You can put a P on it or an M on it, and they're color coded. That's everything in plumbing has got red, everything in, building is green, and everything in mechanical is, blue or so forth. So just be aware of all that. So as we go through here, you got a few things you can look at. We're going to be saying, oh, what is a clean out? Okay, what kind of a clean out we talking about? We're going to talk about drain sizing in the future. We're going to do it. One of the things I want you to remember as you take this class, everything starts at the farthest away item and works its way back to the source. Whether it's, a drain line, it goes back to where it leaves the building. Whether it's we're building ductwork, it's the very farthest register away. If it's water, it's the very farthest spigot out there. If it's, gas, it's the very farthest item on that gas line. We always start at the farthest and work back to the source. Now, later on, when we do some sizing and everything, I will explain more of that to you, because sometimes when you take the test, they're only going to ask you what size line do we need to feed the building with. And we're going to build tables and so forth on that. So that being said, I want you to go through there tonight, look at your table of contents, get a good look at this video again. If you have to, stop it, pause it, and look at these items. If you don't have the book and you don't want to spend the money on the book, so that way you have it. Now, the other thing, a couple other things I want to talk about here is the fact that first thing is I'm not getting paid for this. So eventually I'm going to have a way that you can compensate me for it a little bit, whether, whether you're going to be able to do it with Zelle, or you're going to be able to do with PayPal, or you're going to do with a GoFundMe plan, something like that. But I look at it like this: if you get some information out of it, and it's worth $1 or $2 to you, or whatever you wanted to donate, do it. Because again, I'm trying to buy better equipment so I can do a better class and better cameras and so forth and so on. And again, right now it's all coming out of my pocket. And if this works for you, great. If it doesn't work for you, no problem. Also remember to go ahead and subscribe to it and like it, because I don't know how that works with YouTube, but eventually I want to do it. So that being said, you guys, hopefully we're going to talk to you a little later or tomorrow, and we'll put another one out. So thanks a lot. I appreciate everything, and we'll talk to you later.